Now this year at Baselworld, a great many watches have been released in a category which I don't see as being a dive, pilot, or indeed dress watches. And in this video I'd like to talk about the most notable releases which fall under the sort of casual section of watches. Watches which don't fall necessarily into a direct category, but are nonetheless very attractive semi-sports watches. And I think many watches have come out this year in this category which really have been particularly well executed and very, very beautifully made. This year, though Oris have released a great many watches in their Aquis category which have been updates of previous models, I think the most interesting models from them come in this sort of casual segment of watches, notably the 1917. Now this watch pays homage to watches made in that year 1917, 100 years ago this year. And Oris watches back then had a very different logo as shown on this new watch, but also they were based on pocket watches and were effectively pocket watches with lugs soldered on. And this resulted in quite a bizarre and alien look these days, which gave a very, very rounded case design, with these large onion crowns, which were used originally for winding, but without the mountings that would allow you to hang a pocket watch. The dial of this watch is a beautifully stepped dial with a lower section in the centre and then a higher point around the rest of the dial. It also has a railway track style second, or in this case minute graduations around the edge of the dial, which are separate from the edge of the dial, which means that they do look more printed and more classically executed than a standard arrangement would look. Also, the loom on the dial is painted on in these Arabic numerals, which are very much a style of the time, and have a slightly steampunk aesthetic to them. They're also painted on in a very three-dimensional way, as with things like the Tudor Heritage Ranger, where the paint is raised above the rest of the dial and painted onto a backing. And this gives a very particular and three-dimensional look, without the use of applied indices, which look far more modern. Of course, the Big Crown 1917 is aimed at a pilot's watch market, but I would say that this style of watch was very much used by even the ground military as an alternative and a more practical alternative to a pocket watch. The hands are beautifully blued, and there is no second hand on this watch, which gives a much more simple dial aesthetic. Also, this watch is limited to 1917 pieces, so 1917, thus adding to the exclusivity and rarity of this particular timepiece. Now, the movement in this watch, in order to seem more like the original movement, is a Sellita SW200 and has been modified by Oris to include that button at 2 o'clock, which allows one to engage the time setting feature. So the crown doesn't work like a normal crown where you simply pull it out to adjust the time. Here you actually have to depress this button as well. In the pursuit of originality, Oris have even included their old style logo on the caseback, OWC, which was a symbol of their quality and craftsmanship. The price for this watch will be 2,400 Swiss francs, but in order to add more to the package, if you will, as well as this limited edition watch, you receive a leather watch roll, and in addition to that, you also receive a bun strap to match with the other brown riveted pilot-style strap this watch comes with. Another interesting release from Oris this year is the Oris Chronoris, the Chronoris date in this case. And this is a very attractive 70s throwback, if you will, from the brand's history. Now, on a 15-link bracelet, I think this watch looks absolutely brilliant. It features a tonneau-style case, but with open tops to the lugs, allowing for an easier change of straps, and also just, I think, making the watch look a little bit less extreme than those watches with tonneau cases in the past. Now, the way the case and the dial are finished, I think, work very, very well in tandem. So the case is this tonneau-style case, as I've said, with this sort of sunburst brushing, which draws the eye to the centre of the dial, which is this combination of black, grey and orange, leading for a very old-fashioned style, and does remind me of some of the older Speedmasters, but nonetheless is a great-looking piece. This Oris also features an internal rotating bezel, which adds a level of practicality if one wants to time something, and this is melded really into the dial design very, very well, and is operated by the second crown. And you'll notice that the crowns aren't identical, one's signed, one isn't, and they have different styles of grip on them, which again is a touch which one doesn't notice at first, but becomes very apparent when looking at the watch more in person. In terms of straps, the watch is available on either this 15-link, a very attractive bracelet, or actually a look which I rather like, which is then their NATO-style strap on this watch, which I think looks excellent. Alternatively, there are leather straps available too, which I think will be a very nice choice for someone who is planning to wear this watch around the office, for example. The movement in this watch is very predictable for Oris, which is a Sleater SW200, but it's nonetheless a very interesting movement, and I think one which has gained a great deal of popularity recently with ETA service prices on the rise. So in terms of the quality of the movement, it's very much there, and with a Swiss-made 26 dual movement, which again is nothing too incredible, but it's an interesting movement on the basis that it is easily serviceable. One release which really can't be ignored is the new Omega Railmaster. And this was long a member of the Omega lineup, but was discontinued a few years ago. And this reedition, I must say, is without a doubt the best reedition of its type. Now, this is probably my favourite of the three releases this year in that vintage lineup, that vintage trio even, of the Seamaster 300, the Railmaster, and the Omega Speedmaster 1957, or re-editions, if you will. And I think this watch just captures that aesthetic of the day perfectly, with its very simple polished bezel and polished upper lugs, and then brushed sides. I also love the simplicity of the dial, of having no date, an extremely elegant dial with very legible sword and broad arrow hands, as well as a simple loomless pointer second hand, which again is a very nice touch and something which is more minimalistic than would have been seen on other models today. Now, another wonderful thing about this watch is that it comes on a bracelet which is designed to be like the original one. So that's to say the fact that the links of the bracelet are shorter than today's links, even on the modern Seamaster 300. That's not the 300 Professional, that's the normal 300, which was released a few years ago, which has slightly longer links. And this one's designed to look far more like the original due to these links. Of course, these have polished outer links than a brushed centre link, which is the opposite to most Omega bracelets these days, but nonetheless is more true to the original watch. The only change here really is the clasp is a modern type on this particular watch, just to make it more wearable. One peculiar aspect about this watch, before I continue, is the fact that it's been put under, on the website at least, of Omega. I imagine this will be corrected, and I hope it will be, because it's very misleading, is the fact that the Railmaster is under the Seamaster Aquaterra lineup, and it's stated as being a Seamaster Aquaterra 150-metre Railmaster model, which is very incorrect, really. This is especially incorrect since, due to trying to be more original, this watch has a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, meaning that it's only water-resistant to 60 metres, rather than 150 as with other models. And I can understand why this was done, and I certainly like this, because I think it's more true to the original, and since these watches are re-editions, this is very much appropriate. Without a doubt, my favourite aspect of this watch is the fact that it's only 38mm in diameter, and this is in keeping with the other models in this trilogy, but I must say I love this smaller size because I think it fits more people, and then can be worn as a unisex model rather than a simple man's model. Also, I do find that a smaller watch is more elegant on the wrist, unless it's designed to be large, like for example an IWC Pilot. The movement inside this watch is the Omega Caliber 8806, which is a new coaxial movement, a chronometer movement, which is anti-magnetic to those full 15,000 Gauss. Though on this watch it has a closed caseback with the original inscription of Railmaster, to be more true to the original, and I must say I respect Omega for doing this rather than giving in to the temptation of having an exhibition caseback. Now, while the other Railmaster, the limited edition, the 60th anniversary model, is limited to 3,557 pieces, there is another line of Railmasters which has subtly introduced itself into the Omega lineup, and this is the new Railmaster Collection. This features a much more complicated dial with a vertically brushed pattern on either the black or grey-silver dial, depending on which one you like. My personal favourite is the black because it's more true to the original, but nonetheless I rather like the grey as well. Now, where the limited edition one features the original 57 style case with those flat tops to the lugs and polished and brushed sides, this features the professional style case with those very complex styles of turned lugs, which I think are very elegant and are in this case fully brushed. The dial is also subtly redesigned to have larger loom plots in these different styles, and with far more modern aesthetics in terms of the fonts used on the dial. That said, though, I do like the way this watch has been executed, with those straight hands and that loom pip on the second hand. I think this is a very interesting option and a very nice alternative to a Seamaster. One very nice touch about this watch is the fact that it has that railway-style second plot around the edge of the dial, which is very much a comment and a reference to the fact that this is a Railmaster model. Also, I do like the fact that the caseback on this model has also been kept closed rather than going for an open caseback with the traditional Omega engraving on the back. Because I think this is more true to the Railmaster type of watch, which is a closed caseback anti-magnetic sports watch, which is very legible and very practical too. Also, the push and pull crown on this watch has been retained, but water resistance has been up to 150 metres, while the thickness has been kept to 12.65 mils, keeping it still a very slim timepiece, but adding that practicality of higher water resistance. Inside this watch beats a coaxial master chronometer movement from Omega, making it anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, and making it a very accurate timepiece all round. This is particularly impressive when one considers that the watch is a watch priced at around the $5,000 mark, or just under on the strap, though I suspect most people will be buying this watch on the bracelet, making this watch about $1,000 cheaper than the equivalent Rolex Explorer 1, which doesn't have that anti-magnetism, or, in my opinion, as good a movement, thus making this watch really an excellent buy, and one which I'm very, very pleased to say Omega released. Now, the new Tudor Heritage Black Bay 41 is a watch which I really did want to like at Baselworld 2017, but it really did only bring up one phrase for me, and maybe this is harsh, it may well just be me being harsh, but it did bring up the phrase from the sublime to the ridiculous. And this is something which I've found with a lot of Tudor watches at Baselworld this year, is that they're all from the Black Bay lineup, which does mean that there is this certain void elsewhere in the Tudor lineup, where I do feel that Tudor ought to be innovating elsewhere. But in terms of this watch individually, this watch comes in at £2,000 and is effectively a Black Bay with a dive watch, with a thinned mid-case, a flat dial, flat crystal, simplified dial, and 150 metres of water resistance. Now, so this is sort of a Black Bay which has become more of a dress watch, and it's effectively identical to the Black Bay 36, except larger. So apart from those 5mm of extra case size, all of the specifications of this watch are the same. The movement inside this watch isn't the in-house Tudor calibers, but rather is a more simple ETA 2824, which for £2,000 I think is perhaps not really what one would have looked for in this watch. But I suppose this watch is rather a nice type of watch in that it's a larger version of the quite popular Black Bay 36, which I personally think is a very, very nice watch, due to its versatility in the Tudor range. That said, though, I feel that if someone is willing to go to the 41 size, that really there are better options at this price point, notably models in the Tudor lineup itself. And in terms of the 41mm size, there are a great deal of other watches, notably the Black Bay with the bezel, which I feel is more close to what this watch should be as a dive watch. Therefore, I find it difficult to put my finger on the buyer of this watch, on the basis that it doesn't really fit into either a sort of more dressy Tudor category, or the far more tool-oriented Black Bays. And I don't think it really ought to be named the Black Bay, although I'm not saying anything new, or shedding any new light on this matter, due to the fact that it isn't a dive watch and doesn't really fit with that category, especially with the now reduced water resistance. Therefore, I feel that this watch doesn't appeal to me, but I think will suit the audience to whom the Black Bay 36 was too small, but those who like the design aesthetics, that very simple style. So I do feel there will be a market for this watch, though in terms of sales, I do find this watch a somewhat peculiar choice to make by Tudor. Now, where the Black Bay 41 left me a little bit cold, I find the new Rolex Skydweller in steel is a much, much better proposition from the Rolex group. And the new Rolex Skydweller is quite a curiosity because, of course, previously the Skydweller has been one of the Paramount and Zenith models of the Rolex lineup, resulting in watches which were only precious metal models, with one of the most complex movements in any Rolex watch. Of course, this watch in terms of operation is very different to other Rolex models, notably the fact that it has that ring around the centre of the dial which allows you to have a second time zone, and also you have the month indicated with that surrounding pip around the edge of the dial in each of those dots under each hour marker. The dial on this model has also been changed somewhat, so where there were Arabic or Roman numerals, now one has these loomed battens, and I must say I prefer these. I think they add to the very simple yet very clever aesthetic of this watch. Of course, this watch is now available in steel with a white gold bezel, and then also in two-tone yellow and yellow gold and steel for around £10,000 and £12,000. And I must say this is a fantastic change, I feel, to the Sky Dweller lineup, on the basis that previously, as I've said, these were very high-end models, which I personally found somewhat distasteful due to their complexity and the fact their dials had the numerals on them, made them very fussy in my opinion. Whereas I think this development has made the Sky Dweller an altogether more attractive model, with new dial colours such as this very vibrant blue, which I must say is a fantastic look. Also, the price of these watches means that they're now more accessible for those who enjoy Rolex complications, but like many people simply can't afford to spend £30,000 or £40,000 on a wristwatch. Anyway, I'll conclude this video here, but thank you very much for watching, and do please like, share and subscribe to help the channel if you did enjoy this video, and to enjoy more content, especially the various videos I've made on this year's Baselworld other than this one. So thank you very much for watching. This is Arm on the Watch Guy, over and out.